Blessed to be a part of your day. Great to be back in the Treasure Valley. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning. Live, local, I don't know about late breaking, but we cover the issues that matter to you, Treasure Valley. And we'll talk a little bit more about our sojourn east of the Great River. Great to be back in America west of the Great River. Joining us now is a gentleman that we've known for many, many years, State Senator Stephen Thain. Senator Thain, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Kevin.
Well, I'd say it's tough for you to get up early, but this is old hat for you.
Yeah, I ran a dairy for almost 20 years, so getting up early is pretty typical.
Well, before we get started about the idea of Medicaid expansion and really what's going on in state issues here in the state of Idaho, it's been a while since we've caught up to each other. Let's talk a little bit about your thoughts on just the incredible amount of growth that we're dealing with, whether it's in Emmett, whether it's in Star, whether it's in Nampa, Caldwell, Boise. It's your thoughts on the growth.
Well, it's having an impact on housing prices, which is a concern, especially for young families, people getting started. It's if you're already in the house, you don't notice it so much, but I'm concerned about that. Education, I think there's some things that we can do because that's the biggest budget item in the state. We can do some things to hold the costs, relatively stable and still have good outcomes. You noticed Idaho ranked number 5th in preparing kids for college in the nation, and that has a lot to do with some of the policies we put in place the last few years.
I was going to say, though, the housing issue, in fact, could be pretty big, considering you have so many people moving in and inflating the prices. Are you worried about, a repeat of 2008?
Well, you've been around long enough, and so have I, that the economy goes through cycles, and so it's always a concern that there will be a downturn sometime in the future. We know that will happen, so hopefully we can manage it, and the people won't be hurt too bad. But I'm not an economist, so some of those things you probably need to visit with some of your other guests.
Oh, boy, your political skills haven't waned since our last meeting there, Senator Thain.
I don't know about that. I just try to say it as I see it.
Indeed. So let's talk a little bit about Medicaid expansion. Big move on the ballot. In fact, some Democrats think this could be the silver bullet to get Paulette Jordan elected governor. Is it a good idea or a bad idea in your thoughts?
I think it has unintended consequences. I think it's a bad idea. The last 6 years, it's been before the legislature. The first 2 years, the legislature really didn't take it very seriously. But I've been working for about 6 years to try to do an alternative to Medicaid expansion, because I think the voters recognize that there's a need here, but there's some design flaws with Medicaid expansion that lead to some unintended consequences. And so I've come out opposed to the Medicaid expansion proposition, which is Proposition 2 that will be on the November ballot.
Well, many people think that it's only a matter of time that this would happen. What would it cost the state? Well,
the monetary impact is less what I'm concerned about. You asked the question of growth in the state of Idaho. One of the things that we want to do is maintain the culture of the state of Idaho. And I think one of those cultural elements is that most Idahoans feel like that they need to contribute to their communities, and they need to put their food on their table without being dependent upon government programs. And Medicaid expansion will have the tendency to change that culture. It's interesting that Venezuela in 1999, when they elected Hugo Chavez, decided to adopt some of the policies that Paulette Jordan is suggesting, and that are being promoted by the proponents of Medicaid expansion, free medical care, poverty programs, increased minimum wage. And we see that Venezuela has gone from one of the most prosperous countries in South America to a country where over 2 million people have had to leave because they're going hungry. The economy has virtually collapsed. because of the redistributionist socialist approach. And I fear that Medicaid is just another federal poverty program that has some serious design flaws that we should talk about.
Well, indeed. Anything that you would like to specifically talk about?
Yes. Well, I've written a book called Road to Venezuela, Unintended Consequences of Medicaid Expansion, which people can get by going to roadtovenezuela.com and just getting a free digital copy. And it talks about in more depth some of these design flaws. But the prime one is eligibility. The only way you can be eligible for Medicaid, and Medicaid is for the poor, unlike Medicare, which is for the elderly. So we're talking about a program for the poor. But that eligibility requirement is you have to stay poor. And so what that leads to is a conscious decision by those in certain income, lower income brackets to decide to work less so that they can maintain their eligibility. If they work too much, they'll lose their food stamps, they'll lose their other subsidies, and if this passes, they'll also lose their medical care. So that's the first thing, is the design flaw. We tend to think that federal poverty programs are designed to help people get out of poverty, which in fact they're not, because of the eligibility requirements that you have to stay poor. They create a trap that some people are seduced to stay poor in order to qualify. In fact, there was an article recently, some research done by the Council of Economic Advisors, that said 60% of working age, non-disabled Medicaid recipients work fewer than 20 hours per week. Now, it didn't go into great detail as why, but we know from personal experience and other studies that I've read that the poor make conscious decisions to work less so they can maintain their eligibility. And I think we can do better than expand a flawed federal poverty program.
Well, and that's just the cycle repeating itself, and we see this with every federal government program. It seems when it comes to social services, it de-incentivizes people to become less dependent on the government. In fact, you have generations of people that this is the life they know, is to get the money from the government. Therefore, they're not going to rock the boat and do anything to become independent.
Yes, that's the problem. Now, these programs could be fixed fairly easily if they had some different designs. For example, if there were lifetime limits, then those in poverty would say, okay, I've got a certain amount of time, I need to get my act together. But also, getting out of poverty, and poverty is a very complex issue, and there's lots of different reasons why people are poor. And a one-size-fits-all federal program is not designed to meet the needs of individuals, and that takes walking with them for 6 months to a year and a half. There are private organizations that will do that, and I foresee the potential for private organizations to work with some funding of government. Not that they would receive the funding, but the government could provide some benefits as long as the people were working toward developing a plan and working the plan to get out of poverty. That should be the goal, is to help people get out rather than making poverty more comfortable.
And Senator Thane, how do you think this is going to play out in November?
Well, that's I've heard of some polls that indicate that, partially because Idahoans are quite compassionate, that they recognize that there are people that are poor that need some medical care. And I think the vote will be close. It looks like it's going to pass right now, but we really haven't had a debate yet on what some of those unintended consequences are, and a real discussion on another way to go about meeting these needs. I think if we can have a discussion, the voters very well could say, no, this isn't what we want to do in Idaho. Let's try something else.
Sure, of course. discussions are easier said than done.
They are really easier said than done. Partially, a lot of people don't know that this is on the ballot, Medicaid expansion. People are concerned about their personal affairs, which they should be, and so they might not really become aware of the issue until a couple of weeks before the election. And then where do you get information that really explains both sides of the issue? Like I said, I've written a book. You can go to roadtovenezuela.com, and just a short book with about 16 essays in it. Talks about the different unintended consequences that people should consider and have an informed vote before they go to the ballot in November.
Senator Thane, any other thoughts about the upcoming legislative season? It's interesting. When we first got to know each other, we were in an economic downturn, and it's just been amazing how much growth that we've had here, not only in the Treasure Valley, but across the state. Yeah,
things have changed quite a bit. I think the first session I was in, the second session I was in the legislature, the recession hit, and we had to cut budgets by about 25%. And we had one of the longer sessions when President Obama had his stimulus package. Things are much better now, and this is really the time that we should be helping people get out of poverty when there are jobs, rather than creating another trap to seduce them to stay in poverty. This is the time that would be easiest to do this, to help people get out of poverty. And because the economy is doing well under the Trump administration, and businesses are adding capital and jobs. But we need to prepare for the future. And one interesting thing about our tax base is taxes are paid by those that have jobs and produce. Taxes are not paid by those that are on government poverty programs. At least they don't pay very many taxes. They might work some, but basically they don't pay taxes. So if we try to expand these poverty programs and get more people that are basically leaving the economy, our tax base is harmed. And you're seeing this in some other states where the number of people that were projected to be on Medicaid was much lower than the number that actually showed up and signed up for the program. So, and that basically takes people out of the labor force. The labor force has a relation between production, standard of living, and tax base. So this to me is a very critical issue moving forward. I'm not saying we're going to end up like Venezuela next year, but if we don't change course and recreate this culture of productivity and expectation that people produce and take care of themselves, in 20 or 25 years, we easily could become like Venezuela. It's a choice that we make, and this is a serious choice.
All right, Senator Thane, don't be a stranger. We appreciate you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate the time.
All right, our great friend, Senator Stephen Thane, joining us, talking about the economy, of course, the consequences of Medicaid expansion. Your calls, as always, reacting to the news of the day, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio.
Rival-style debate, right? They're talking about contempt, and as the name of Woodward's book is, real fear, right? You hear over and over and over again, including from people who agree with Trump's agenda, that he is unfit, that his instability puts us in danger, and that they feel like they have to be there to be the adults in the room. And I honestly don't understand how people can be part of this and not feel shame and not feel some responsibility for foisting this on this nation.
The idea that someone should be shamed for working in this administration is an outrageous statement. It's an absolutely outrageous statement. You're serving your country. And if you get to the point, you have two choices. If you get to the point where the policy differences or the personal differences are profound enough that you can't be proud of being there anymore, then get up and leave. But don't be a coward and write an anonymous thing and then have a news organization be willing to accept that kind of cowardice, because that's what it is.
Well, look, the news organization is not responsible for making sure that members of the administration behave honorably. If members of the administration are behaving dishonorably enough to go out and place op-eds like that, that itself is news. But the fact is, and obviously you know this, nobody in this administration or the number of people in this administration who have any respect for the president is infinitesimal, which is why it's been so hard to narrow. Which is why it's been so hard to narrow down who wrote this in the first place.
That's your opinion.
Right?
That's just not true. That's just not true. From where you sit, you have no respect for the president. That's obvious.
Good morning. That was from This Week with George Stephanopoulos, Michelle Goldberg of the New York Times, the preeminent hater of the president, along with Chris Christie, his staunchest defender. Good morning, Kevin Miller. Back in the saddle with you, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's get you to traffic and weather together.
Jim Ducey.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. Jim in for Larry, Bob in for Dave, and we're back from east of the Great River. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So many issues to get to. Last week we really didn't get a chance to talk a little bit about Mr. Wonderful reappearing, and that would be former President Obama. Much to the chagrin of his sycophants, Obama cannot run again, but he's back, breaking with tradition and going after the president, going after his successor. We'll get to that, but there's a strange situation that happened over the weekend. No, not the start of the NFL, but in tennis. And you have this tennis star, Serena Williams, the most dominant female athlete of her generation, perhaps the most dominant female tennis athlete ever, was on the verge of winning the U.S. Open. Now, before we get going, I know you're going to say, Kevin, this is not, what happened to you? Did the humidity sap your brain when you went east of the Great River? This is not tennis talk. This is Treasure Valley talk. I get it. However, it was fascinating to see this drama play out. Serena Williams lost in the U.S. Open, did not tie Margaret Court's record, having most Grand Slam wins ever, major wins. So Serena took to bashing the judge. So the judge warned her again, gave her a penalty, gave her another penalty. And instead of taking the direction from the judge, she turned it into a feminist issue. And then, of course, the mamby-pamby, limp, liberal media that is predominantly in sports media, instead of saying, well, the rules are the rules, you don't misbehave, they took her side. Serena was very upset, but can't we just, do we have to turn everything into a social issue, even a tennis match, even when someone's losing?
I don't cheat. I didn't get coaching. How can you say that? You owe me an apology. You owe me an apology. I have never cheated in my life. I have a daughter and I stand what's right for her. And I've never.
So Serena gets mad because the judge saw her coach sending her the signals. He gave her a warning, gave her another warning, and then what happened next? Well, he deducted a point, and Serena lost it. How dare you try and enforce the rules against me? Now, again, this is the only talk show in America, thankfully here in the state of Idaho, where we're going to get this perspective. Everyone else is saying, well, the men swear and everything else. The women should do the same thing. It's a double standard. Well, you can't worry about what other people do. You have to worry about yourself.
You owe me an apology.
I love this. Does that ever work with anybody when you go up to someone and go, you owe me an apology? If you genuinely feel sorry or you have to do so out of some type of commitment, you apologize because you feel a need to, not because you, quote unquote, owe someone. So it gets a little worse. You have officials coming up trying to say to Serena, hey, Serena, you're acting unladylike. You're acting unlike a champion. She was just on the cover of Time magazine a couple weeks ago. Serena Williams, you're a great champion. I guess everybody loses it. But over this?
For you to attack my character is something that's wrong. It's wrong. You attacking my character. Yes, you are. You owe me an apology. will never, ever, ever be on another court of mine as long as you live.
See, and here's the other thing with these athletes, like Colin Kaepernick, they're so used to being pampered, they're so used to getting their way, that no one ever disagrees with them. They're surrounded by yes people. You'll never be on another one of my courts. You'll never work in this town again.
You are the liar. When are you going to give me my apology? You owe me an apology. Say it. Say you're sorry. Well, then don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
There you have it, one of the top social media trending stories of the weekend. Serena Williams saying she's not a cheater, and the guy was trying to de-escalate the situation, and the unintended consequences is the more he ignored her or tried to be respectful, the madder she got. And I do believe that people in athletics, people in sports, are role models. It was just very unbecoming of Serena Williams. We'll have more on that in a minute. 580-5436, time to get up and start the day. Let's get you to work safely and on time, which we just did. Let's find out what's happening in your world. Do we have another cliche, Kevin? I don't know about that. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. To Capitol Hill, Rachel Sutherland joins us. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
So last week, I spent the week about a block from where you are, as usual, and boy, I was telling everybody what that humidity. Oh, my goodness.
You were down at, the Phoenix Park again?
At the Phoenix Park, yeah. Did a lot of on-the-scene reporting. And since I didn't get clearance, I decided to let you continue on working your job instead of harassing you like the last time I was there.
Well, I was glad that you came by.
I know you were the only one, but anyway, it was just funny. I don't know what was rougher, the oppressive heat last week in D.C., the move by Congress to get out to get back to campaigning, or the Kavanaugh hearings. My goodness.
There was a lot going on, as usual. Kavanaugh hearings, there was some stuff on the Sunday shows about that, but a lot of it was about this op-ed. Vice President Mike Pence was on Face the Nation and Fox News Sunday talking about that and saying he's willing to take a lie detector test to prove it wasn't him. He doesn't think it was anyone in his office either. And so there's this growing list of administration officials that said they didn't do this. I thought it was funny. One of the things on a Chiron or, a bunch of pictures on the screen on Fox News Channel actually had maybe 30 faces, and among them was Melania Trump. That she was even under consideration kind of cracked me up. But in all seriousness, there is some discussion about maybe having people take polygraph tests to find out who's the one. And the president's pretty steamed up about all this.
He is, and you've got the vice president on Fox News Sunday. You've got George Papadopoulos on This Week. I don't know if you, got any of his stuff. He sounded like a pretty boring guy.
Yeah, kind of. Obviously not that boring because he ended up in some trouble. But, when I think about, I've said this to you before, in politics and getting in trouble with the law, they seem just to go together. And that you better have a good lawyer if you go into politics.
Tell that to Mr. Manafort. And then we have Kellyanne Conway on State of the Union and on Meet the Press. And the folks just salivate about these stories. What was the reaction on the Hill towards Judge Kavanaugh? Did people like him, or did it go down partisan lines?
It was pretty much down partisan lines. In fact, we expect a vote on Judge Kavanaugh on September 20th, and that's in committee. And then he'll go to the full Senate where, really it's expected that he'll be confirmed because Republicans are in the majority. And Senator John Kyle coming back to Washington to fill the seat of the late John McCain. He's one who helped shepherd the whole process of selection and confirmation for Brett Kavanaugh, so he's not going to flip. So right now, that 51 majority, Vice President Mike Pence, I believe, telling Face the Nation that he doesn't even expect, he doesn't know if he'll need to cast a tie-breaking vote, but he says that he hopes he doesn't need to, but he's obviously willing to do so. And that would be if a Republican defected, maybe someone like a Senator Rand Paul, but it's kind of unlikely. And then there's these Democrats in red states who may flip to vote to confirm. And so whereas this has been a very controversial nomination, I don't see how Democrats really have the votes to stop it.
Right, and we'll see what Joe Manchin does, what Senator
Heidi
Tester does.
Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly. There's going to be these. Oh, and Doug Jones from Alabama, he could also flip and vote to confirm.
The drama continues. Are they doing anything, or are they done for the year in Congress?
Oh no, they're not done. They'll be back. They, in fact, like I mentioned, that vote in the committee will come on September 20th, and then the week after, probably a full, the vote for the full Senate. And I think Republicans are hoping to have Judge Kavanaugh seated on the High Court in time for their next session on October 1st, and that would be right in time, for the midterms.
Rachel, I think your weather forecast is going to be a little better, and always inspiring to be just a block away from you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, we hope the hurricane. I mean, it's the whole East Coast now.
Yeah.
So we could get hit. So, yeah. Thanks, and sorry I missed you.
Well, no, it'll go back to your days in South Carolina covering that stuff. Old home day for you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Rachel Sutherland. Let's go to, is this true? Tea Party Bob joins us this morning so early on KIDO Talk Radio.
Mr. Miller, you touched on one of my very favorite subjects here, Medicaid expansion. Thanks for having Senator Thane on this morning. And it's nice to have you back here in Idaho.
Oh, it's good to be home.
Well, we missed
Although
you while you were gone.
I did love the East Coast hours where 6 a.m. was really 8 a.m. So,
well, that's all back to normal now, right?
Yes.
As you know, I've been vehemently against this Medicaid expansion, as I was against the state health care exchange. Senator Thane said Medicaid expansion is a way to keep people in the poorhouse by requiring them to make so little money that they will be on the government dole for most of their lives. And this is the age-old Democratic way of keeping people dependent on government, which we have found is partly part and parcel part of our broken system here for Medicare. These people need to have a path to get out of poverty, and a means to train them for better jobs, giving them the necessary skills to find these new jobs. Thane's correct in saying that we need to give those in poverty a hand up instead of a hand out by making them responsible for keeping healthy and making sure they have skin in the game, which means paying something for the Medicaid they receive. If we're going to provide them with this kind of assistance, we need to provide the education that's going to find them good jobs, especially in the economy we have now that's growing. They need to become self-sufficient. We also need to pay the doctors fees necessary to keep them in practice and helping Medicaid recipients. Because if you don't hold these doctors responsible on top of paying them, how do we know that they're treating these people and they're getting well? We don't know. Right now we have 400 doctors in this state who have actually retired because they were in the Medicaid business and they couldn't live because of paying for their malpractice insurance and the low fees that Medicaid was paying them. If we don't have a way to hold them responsible...
If it's a Democratic idea, then why does it even have a chance in Republican, the reddest of the red, Idaho?
Well, the unfortunate part is they've had a huge drive-on for this. They're trying to make everybody feel guilty that we're responsible for these people being in the situation they're in. Well, it's government who has helped them be in this situation. Government is not the way to help them get out. It's through the private sector. And Democrats are not going to look to the private sector. They never have. Why would they start now? We need to find ways to cut out the enormous paperwork involved in Medicaid. 40 to 50 cents of every dollar is spent just on paperwork. If you get the paperwork out of the way, you're going to save literally billions of dollars. And, when you take a look at why these people are in the situation they're in, it's because of an education, a lack of education in how to stay healthy and how to get healthy. Much of this has to do with changing their lifestyle and getting them to understand what proper nutrition is. We don't have doctors here who are going to help them do that. They're not trained to do that. It's like giving people, money for cigarettes and telling them to stop smoking. we give them food stamps and we allow them to purchase the unhealthy food they consume, and they get sicker.
Right. But
Is
isn't
that
that
correct?
But isn't that a choice? I used to argue this all the time I used to argue this all the time with smoking. And I said, if people want to smoke, they should be able to smoke. Now, going back 20 years ago on MSNBC when I was on with Pat Buchanan and Bill Press, we were talking about this, and I said, look, they're going to ban cheeseburgers. And now you seem to be advocating banning cheeseburgers.
You know what? It's not such a bad idea.
Do you want to ban cheeseburgers? Do you want to ban food that is not healthy? So we follow the regime of Tea Party Bob, where it's kale, and a little cucumbers.
It's not my regime. It's a regime to get a healthy attitude.
People don't want to be healthy.
Eat enough cheeseburgers, and you start looking like one.
What is that? Fat shaming?
Yeah, well, I guess
some people are comfortable with that. Some people are comfortable with that, and you have fat people that live forever. It's all genetics.
Then get them off Medicaid. If you're over a certain weight, you can't be on Medicaid. How does that sound?
Well, that's up to you. That's up to
you.
It's
not up to me.
I think
right now, it's up to the government.
People should have a choice. You're saying that they shouldn't. That sounds like a liberal idea, not a conservative idea.
If you want to get people out of the cycle that they're in, you have to help them change their lifestyle. And if you don't give them the tools to do that, it's not going to happen. And if that means that they can't buy certain things with the food stamps that we are giving them the money for,
well, then you're going to have whatchamacallit. Then you're going to have then you're going to have a black market for Count Dracula cereal.
You already have a black market for the SNAP program.
All right.
Sure you do.
All right, Tea Party Bob. GemStatePatriot.com.
Have a good day, Kevin.
Thanks for waking up early, buddy.
Hey. You have a good day.
You too. Boy, quite a spirited debate. But back to what Tea Party Bob said, if we do live in the reddest of the red, why should the state consider Medicaid expansion? Love to hear your perspective next. Time to get up and start the day. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Got to tell you, I still mourning the death of the Bandit, our great friend Burt Reynolds. And, of course, many of us never met Burt Reynolds, never were around Burt Reynolds, but imagine just a career at 82. And I urge you, if you have Amazon Prime, to go check out the movie, or you can get, I think, on Netflix. You have to pay for it. Maybe you don't have to pay for it on Netflix. But it used to be on DirecTV. It's called The Last Movie Star. It was Burt Reynolds' last movie. And it was really an amazing look at Burt Reynolds. And they actually go back and look over some of his movies, and they have young Burt Reynolds in the movie seemingly talking to old Burt Reynolds. It was really an inspirational movie. Chevy Chase is in it, a couple other young stars. I think it was an independent movie, but really, what a great Hollywood icon. We will miss Burt Reynolds. They don't really make him like Burt Reynolds anymore, do they? Well, we're talking about Medicaid expansion, number one. Number two, your thoughts on that. Number three, this issue involving Colin Kaepernick. Apparently, Nike is just doing it. Their stock may be going down, but their sales apparently are going up.
Individuals like Nate Boyer, former Special Forces guy, come over and say, hey, you know what? Can you please at least just take a knee? Go from the bench, taking a seat, to just show a modicum of respect, take a knee. He did that. Our request is just stand up, take that last final step, and encourage your friends out on the field to stop following your bad example and just stand up and show respect.
There we have it. That is Tyler Merritt, CEO of Nine Line Apparel, speaking to Fox and Friends. And remember, Fox News on the radio. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio on 107.5 FM, 580 AM.
It was very simple. It's just, I stand for the national anthem. We had an outpouring of support. It's what we stand for. It's what we believe in. And we're going to stick with it.
Is it so wrong to stand for the national anthem?
You don't have to experience police brutality to know that it's wrong. I agree. I think that it is wrong. But I think what we're talking about here is respect. Respect for the national anthem. That's really what the controversy is around, is the platform he chose.
So back to your thoughts. We have 4,000 people not saying they're not going to go to the Nike store in at the Village in Meridian. Although on the other hand, you have people buying their Nikes at Fred Meyer's, at Walmart, or what have you, or online at a discounted rate. How many people are just going to get rid of their shoes? And what I find more disturbing is you have people buying Nike shoes because of their political stance. Maybe there's something that we don't know about. Maybe we're out of line. Maybe it's okay to bash the police. Maybe it's okay to bash the national anthem. I don't see it that way. 580-5436, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work. And we appreciate that. Thank you very much. So we come down to Kaepernick, and Nike seems to be winning when we're talking about just doing it, right? Nike seems to be okay, good to go, no problem. But what does it really say? Now, you've got one Louisiana mayor saying that they should ban all Nike products. And if you're a Nike team, Liberty University in Virginia, saying they're discontinuing their service with Nike. They just they have an issue with it. And you think about this, and maybe Nike's right. Maybe it is about this. Who cares about the conservatives?
If people say your dreams are crazy, if they laugh at what you think you can do, good. Stay that way. Because what non-believers fail to understand is that calling a dream crazy is not an insult. It's a compliment. Don't try to be the fastest runner in your school or the fastest in the world. Be the fastest ever. Don't picture yourself.
By the way, this is Colin Kaepernick, and you've got people, some with disabilities, some people wearing burqas, being in athletic events. Again, I don't understand why we have to make everything so political, so social, so divisive, in my opinion. Why can't we just enjoy sports?
Wearing OBJ's jersey. Picture OBJ wearing yours. Don't settle for homecoming queen or linebacker. Do both. Lose 120 pounds and become an Iron Man after beating a brain tumor. Don't believe you have to be like anybody to be somebody.
Boy, they've come a long way from be like Mike, right? Kevin Miller in the morning. We're just getting started on KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. More coming up next. Fox News on your home for Fox News, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning.